Let's talk about things I almost bought but didn't. It's not quite an anti-haul, but I do go through things that I almost bought that were maybe in my shopping cart, but I just didn't check out on for whatever reason. And I'll go through all of those reasons with you. I also like to sort of shop my stash and tell you the things that I'm using in lieu of the products that tempted me so that I can be more thoughtful and intentional about how I use and enjoy the things that I already have. So if that's of interest, I would love for you to subscribe, hang out, and let's get right into it. Also, I did film this look, so if you're curious to see how I created this, I will link that tutorial below. I've got my list on my phone, so we're gonna go through everything together. So I mentioned in my February favorites video that I don't think I've tried or received a new foundation this year. Received as in PR. It was a slow start to the year in terms of foundation releases, but there are a few now that have accumulated that have caught my attention. So I think there are two categories for me when it comes to these base releases. There are a few true foundations that are sort of in this like skin-like but medium coverage category that do have my attention. One of them is the Makeup by Mario foundation that was released at the end of 2022. That one, I think it's called the Surreal Skin Foundation. It does look really beautiful, but potentially a little bit too dewy for me. And I do think there are some emollient ingredients and maybe oils in the formula. And so as curious as I am about this formula, I don't think it's the smartest purchase for me, especially going into spring and summer because I have combo oily skin. But I am curious about it, and it did pique my interest. It was in my cart for a period of time. I just never ended up checking out. The other two foundations I think are slightly more comparable, and that is the Hourglass Ambient Soft Glow Foundation, as well as the new Gucci Eternité Débutée 24-hour full coverage luminous matte finish foundation. So these both inhabit an interestingly like middle of the road, but kind of contradictory finish. I do think that Hourglass is more of a medium finish and the Gucci foundation is more of a full coverage finish, but they're both this like soft matte, luminous matte, soft glow sort of thing where they both, I think, claim to be blurring, and I think they both do set down, but they also have a sort of lit from within quality that's not like a flat matte. So I don't know if that means there are like pearls in the formula or if that luminosity comes from mica or something like that, or if the luminosity comes from the finish itself. But I am curious about both of these. I actually used a sample of the Hourglass Ambient Soft Glow Foundation on my friend Lauren because she got a bunch of samples and I'm doing her makeup for her wedding in June. And so we thought we would test it out and I played with it on her and it had such a beautiful finish. It was like creamy skin, but very, very filtered, very blurring. And it also did have like a natural matte finish. The Gucci foundation I'm super curious about because I think for a luxury brand, they do an incredible shade range. And I have reviewed their first foundation that they came out with that I love. This is their Fluid Débutée Natural Finish Fluid Foundation. And I really like this. It's shade 250 Olive. It's a super inclusive range. This also has like a self-setting, very blurring quality that I liked. I'm not sure if I know the exact difference between this foundation and their second foundation. I think this has more of a natural skin finish, although I found it plenty of coverage for me. And the other one is more of a matte foundation, but it's a luminous matte. So I don't really know what the difference is, but I am curious. Obviously, it's piqued some curiosity in me, but I definitely don't need more foundations. I just like testing them, that's all. And I do have some special things coming up in my life that I would like maybe some new foundations to find something that looks really good on camera and it's a little bit more long wear, looks good under lights for all day wear. So we'll see. I don't think I'm going to jump on any of these quite yet, but I am curious. Lately, I have had quite a few foundations in rotation. I'm really trying to rotate through my foundations just so they don't go bad, especially because they're liquid and liquids do expire. So right now, I definitely have pulled out some of my slightly dewier or more luminous foundations just because it's winter, my skin's a little bit drier. So I've been using Luminous Silk in 5.9. I've been using the Exa foundation in Alley 390. My most used probably right now is Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin in 6 Neutral. Just love the flexibility of this foundation. And I also recently pulled out my Fit Glow Beauty foundation again in the shade F3.7. And of course I have my Merit stick that I use for concealing, but also some like light coverage. Even this exercise of like pulling out my foundations, touching them, going through them is a reminder that I do have a lot of product. I'm not super hardcore. I don't think I have like necessarily a strict budget or strict rules around spending. And I think I have more flexibility because I do this as my job. But nevertheless, I don't want to have a ton of clutter in my life. So I just want to be a little bit more intentional about the next base product I do bring into my life. And I do think it will be for that special occasion. Then there's a cluster of like skin tints or lighter bases that have definitely piqued my interest. The first one is actually a surprise even to me, and it's the Guerlain Terracotta Le Teint. It's available now in Europe, supposedly coming soon to the US according to Trendmood. It comes in 30 shades, it's long wearing for 24 hours, no transfer, light texture, airy formula. So I think it's going to be one of these like slightly powdery matte skin tints. And I'm really curious about that because for me, as someone with oily skin, that kind of formula tends to work really well for me. I'm very curious about that. And I also think the shade range compared to some of the other luxury beauty skin tints out there is pretty decent. I am actually kind of surprised because usually when it comes to skin tints especially, the shade ranges don't tend to be that good. So this is definitely catching my eye. I love a skin-like finish. I think this will be really, really nice for summer, but I do have a few other skin tints. You guys know I love the Summer Friday skin tint, but that one's pretty dewy, so I don't think it's comparable to this. The closest thing I could think of is the Fenty Eavesdrop, their blurring skin tint. It's long wearing because it does have that film forming quality, and it's more of a natural finish. And then the Positive Light Tinted Moisturizer from Rare Beauty is also really lovely, but it's also kind of dewy. Same with the Beauty Blender Bounce Skin Tint. It's called the Always On Radiant Skin Tint. So I think more of my skin tints and tinted moisturizers tend to veer on the dewy side. Off the top of my head, I'm also thinking about the Tower 28 Tinted Moisturizer. That's more of a natural finish, but I don't have anything that's super fluid and long wearing and matte. And I haven't tried much from Guerlain. I feel like I've heard that their foundation, whatever came out like a couple of years ago, was really, really good. Never tried that. So I think from just a brand curiosity perspective, they've got my attention there too. So I'm making a mental note of that. We'll see what happens. The other tinted moisturizer sort of product is the MAC Strobe Dewy Skin Tinted Moisturizer. So this is obviously part of the MAC Strobe line, which was one of the first liquid illuminating products on the market. So I think this tinted moisturizer would be like if you mixed some of their strobe cream into a tinted moisturizer. It is, however, dewy, but I'm still curious about it just because I like base products and I like playing with light and luminosity on the skin. And it also comes in 16 shades. So I know this is available in Europe, but I don't know if it's available in the US yet. I will keep my eyes peeled for it though, just because, you know, I am curious and obviously MAC does base products really well. Finally, there is a concealer on the market that I am curious about, and it's the Tom Ford Traceless Soft Matte Concealer, which comes in 20 shades. And I do think this is available now. I think I've seen it on retailer websites, and I have to admit I am curious. So you guys know that I like a sheer base, but I like to pinpoint conceal with something high coverage as needed. And lately I have been drawn to things in stick form. So for example, I really like the Merit Minimalist Stick Foundation to just like conceal where I need and blend it out. Same with the Jones Road Face Pencil. This one's newer to me. It's pretty new to my collection. You saw me test it out recently, and it's been great for that purpose too. I also use the NARS Potted Concealer, the Soft Matte Concealer, but I do find that I'm drawn to these because you can actually just like draw it on, pinpoint conceal, and it's easy. However, these are both lighter coverage. They're like natural skin, slightly dewy. They're meant to be very skin-like, and they are on the creamier side. And I feel like the Tom Ford concealer stick is more comparable, at least from what I hear, to the Clé de Peau stick foundation, which I actually have never tried. But I really, really like Tom Ford Beauty. And I've heard good things about this. And I know that their traceless stick foundation is also beautiful. So I am curious about this. Maybe it's something that I'll pick up for that special occasion. TBD. Moving on to cheek products, there are some interesting trends happening that are catching my eye. So I did predict that powder blushes would be back this year. And interestingly enough, so are powder highlighters, and it seems like powder bronzers as well. So I think there's this new generation of really finely milled, seamless, skin-like, very like high-tech airbrushed powders that are hitting the market. And this is really different than the powder cheek products of yore that are like actually powdery or cakey on the skin or drying. These are really sort of creamy, refined powders. So starting with highlighters, the ones that have caught my eye are the new Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Glow Glide Face Architect Highlighters, which come in 6 shades and are $48, and they look really beautiful. The confusing thing about this is I don't even reach for my powder highlighters. Like, I have them, but I never reach for them because I like liquid illuminators. So it just doesn't make sense for me to purchase these, but I am curious just as a makeup lover about the texture. Specifically, I would be interested probably in Champagne Glow, but I'm also curious about this rose gold shade. It just looks like a really beautiful, interesting shade, maybe a blush topper for someone of my skin tone. So, you know, those have caught my eye, but I don't think I could justify buying a powder highlighter when I don't even use the ones that I already have. The other highlighter I'm curious about is the newer Rare Beauty one, their Positive Light Silky Touch highlighter. I think this comes in 4 shades, and it is a powder highlighter. I think what I'm drawn to is the compact. It just looks really cute, and even though it's a powder, something about that like rounded pan feels creamy or kind of like bubbly and fun. I don't know why. I think it just like creates that impression of like, I don't know, it reminds me of how the product would look on your cheek on like a really smooth surface. It would give you that beautiful luminosity. These do look a little bit metallic potentially, but I do think I would like the shade personally, Exhilarate, which is a champagne gold. And just based on the photos, these both, this and the Charlotte Tilbury one, both look like that really refined, silky, like glassy powder. I don't think they're baked gelée formulas, at least it doesn't specify in the product descriptions. Those tend to be the formulas I like best for a powder highlighter. But, you know, I am curious about this new wave of powder cheek products. So speaking of that, there are more powder blushes, as I predicted, that are coming out that just look so beautiful. So Armani Beauty is coming out with a range of powder blushes. I mean, these just look so good. These are called the Luminous Silk Glow Blush. It looks like they're going to release 8 shades that are slightly shimmery. I don't think they're going to be like glittery. It seems based on photos that it's more of a pearly sort of satiny sheen. It says it's supposed to drape your skin like silk. Their compacts, of course, are always really, really beautiful, and their powder products are stunning. I have used their Luminous Silk powder, or maybe it was their Neo powder. Either way, it was like a slightly tinted pressed powder for setting or for touch-ups, and their powders are just super creamy and refined, and they make the skin look creamy. I don't know how else to describe it. So I am really, really curious about these, and I think the shade curation is really fun. There are definitely your neutrals, your roses, your corals, but they've also got these bright pops of color that I think will be really, really fun, and we'll see a lot of going into spring and summer. The other blushes that I'm curious about are from Haus Labs. I just feel like I've heard really, really good things about their bronzers and their highlighters. So they have released 5 shades of their Color Fuse blush. And these are supposed to be velvety soft with buildable color, second skin finish. And I really love these punchy shades that they've picked. So there's this like hot pink, this sort of deep rose, they've got a peachy shade, a watermelon shade, and a deep berry. So I think they're really speaking to that like bright punchy pop of color that I was saying we're really gonna see a lot of in spring and summer. And I just love how they look on the models. I think every shade shows up on every skin tone. So they're very thoughtfully formulated. And I've just heard great things about their powder compact formula. So I do want to try. If you would like for me, oh wait, I've reviewed their foundation. I totally forgot about that. I did like their foundation. But if you'd like for me to review more from the brand, let me know. I reviewed that foundation, I think, in October, and it is sitting in my drawer somewhere. I completely forgot about it, but let me know if you want to see more. Of course, the liquid and cream blush craze is still happening. And there are a couple of liquid blush formulas that I am curious about, but I haven't picked up simply because I don't love liquid blushes. I just find they're a little bit harder to work with. Sometimes they blend out a little bit patchy depending on the formula. I just think it's a little trickier than a classic cream. However, there are a couple that are catching my eye. The first one is the Kulfi Mendy Moment Long Lasting Radiant Cream Blush. So this comes in a little squeezy tube. There are 5 shades, and these are also pretty punchy and bright. And I specifically really want to try the shade Sandalwood Girls. It's, or Sandalwood Swirls, just kidding. It's just like a rosy brown, slightly maybe even berry. I'm just curious about it, and this is Kulfi's first cheek product. So I am curious to try more from the brand, and I'm really excited to see more South Asian brands and representation in Sephora. I think this formula also has like a pearl, refined pearl throughout the formula. So I don't know if it's radiant because of the pearls or radiant because the texture of the blush is dewier. So I am curious. I kind of want to play with them in store maybe before if I were to like pick one up, I would want to try them in store. The other liquid blush is of course the Charlotte Tilbury Matte Beauty ones. And there are 3 shades of this. There's the Pink Pop, Peach Pop, and Dream Pop. They are all the classic wand shape. So I have 3 here, the highlighter, Pink Gasm, and Peach Gasm, but they're matte. And the thing that I am curious about with this matte formula is that A, I hope it blends out nicely, but also B, sometimes I do find that the shimmery versions of the Beauty Light ones, depending on the shade, can be a little bit metallic for my taste. So for example, I think it's Peach Gasm. Peach Gasm has a gold shimmer running through it that sometimes is not the most flattering on my pores, but I do like the formula and I do find it blends out well. So I am curious about the matte formula, assuming that it has the same blendability and sheerness and ease of use as the other light ones. But for now, I have some other liquid blushes in my collection that I need to use because I've kept all of these because they're good and they perform well and I like how they look. So I have the Milk Makeup Bionic blushes. These are more of a gel formula. And then I have the Euphoria blushes. These are liquid. They're called a blush oil. So they do have that like dewiness on the cheek, but I find that their newer tinted shades are not as oily as their original BYO blush. The color changing one that was a little bit stickier on my cheek. And then for a matte liquid cheek, I love the Danessa Myricks Vision Flushes. These are like what I would hope the other formulas would be like. And these are also super, super pigmented. My favorite shade is Ballet Slippers, but I also love this bright shade, Sweet Nectar, and that's Ballet Slippers. I actually just realized I don't have any eyeshadow products on this list. I don't know why. I guess we've all just kind of been moving away from these mega palettes, and I'm very into like single shadows. Even the one I did today is just a single Half Magic Beauty liquid shadow, their Chrome Addiction. I did their baby blue one and then I went over it just with a baby blue powder, and it looks fun but funky but still fresh and not like you're trying too hard, which I really didn't. It was just one color like swiped on. So no eyeshadows, but there is an eye product that is really piquing my curiosity, and is the MAC Lash Dry Shampoo Mascara Refresher. So it's basically a mascara dry shampoo that's supposed to help you reshape and intensify your mascara by adding instant volume and softness. It's $24. This is piquing my attention because it feels like something new, which we so rarely see in beauty because we are so saturated. But a lash dry shampoo, I mean, I also love dry shampoo. I use it all the time. So the idea of having something that you can use as like a pick-me-up throughout the day is really interesting. And I'm definitely curious. And I want to know, like, is it just like a fine mascara? Because it does have a very fine sort of twisty wand. And is it just like a mascara that is buildable, or is it actually doing something different that we haven't seen before? The before and after photos that I'm seeing like on their website are pretty impressive. It seems like the mascara is adding volume and it's adding length. So I am curious, and I appreciate that they're using like real photos that are actually helpful in terms of seeing the impact of the product, but it's also realistic. Let me know if you would like for me to review that, if you're also curious. I would take the dive for us on that product. So that's it for eye products, and there are a couple of lip products that I'm definitely curious about. One of them is a formula that is not new to me. Lisa Eldridge extended her lip gloss line, and I do have quite a few of these. My most used one is the shade Go Lightly. It's in my purse right now because I was wearing it earlier this week. This is the shade Muse. This is a very thick, rich gloss. It's not sticky, but it has body to it. It almost feels, it's very moisturizing, and it almost feels like it coats your lips and it like stays there somehow. So she has added 8 new shades, and there are 2 sheer shades that have a bit of colored pearl through them, but they're really just a clear base. There's one shade in particular that I'm really curious about, which is called Sorcery. And this is described as a cool-toned, earthy rose with a touch of mauve. I did watch her like inspiration video, which she does for all of her like new products. I think she mentioned the inspiration for Sorcery is kind of like a bit of 90s grunge. And you do see that it almost has like a gray undertone, but it doesn't look ashy on the lips. There is this like interesting mauvey, cool toned quality to it, but I think on the lips, because it is a gloss and your natural lip color comes through, it just slightly cools down the natural tone of your lips. It looks great on everybody I've seen it on social media, so I am curious about it, but I just have a lot of glosses, and I do have some of her glosses, and even her glosses I love, but I reach for Go Lightly so much more than the others because I love the shade. So yeah, I don't know if it makes sense for me to get it right now, but I do think that's a unique shade in my lip gloss collection. I don't know if I have anything quite like Sorcery. Then I've got an affordable product that really caught my attention, and I know people have been loving it, and it is the NYX Fat Oil Lip Drip. I mean, a lot of the appeal is how delicious the branding is and the name is, the Fat Oil Lip Drip. Like, it's so evocative. And the other thing that I think I'm drawn to is this really chubby doe foot applicator. It just looks really moisturizing. The photos of this campaign look super high shine, and it just looks like the kind of thing that I would wear a lot, that I do wear a lot, and could just live in my purse. There are 8 shades. There's a clear one, there's some pinks, purples, reds, beiges, browns. I am interested in the pinks, beiges, and browns. That's just the kind of thing I like. And I also think the doe foot applicator is evocative of the Dior lip oil because it's chubby and it's rounded and it's slightly angled, like it really hugs your lip. You guys know I did have and enjoy the lip oil, but that one has menthol in it, and I recently decluttered mine because it expired. So I am curious about this, and it has squalane, it's $9. I mean, it just kind of seems like a no-brainer product for a lot of people, and I think it's flying off the shelves for good reason. However, I do have a lot of these kinds of products. What immediately came to mind was the Make Beauty Serum Balm, just because it has that chubby doe foot applicator, and this is exactly the kind of shape that I like in terms of the applicator itself. And I use these all the time. They live in my purse. I have like one in each handbag. So I don't really need that necessarily. Although this is more of a liquid balm than a gloss. The NYX one looks much more traditionally glossy and oily. I've also got my Merit lip oils. These are a thinner formula and not as glossy. And then I also have my Lawless Forget the Filler lip plumping glosses. These do have a bit of menthol in them, but they're not nearly as spicy as other products that bother me. And these also have that like chubby seated doe foot applicator. By seated, I mean like it looks like a little seat. There's a little curve, so it really hugs your lip as you're applying it. So yeah, I have a lot of options when it comes to glosses, and I do not need more, but I am curious about these, and it's nice to see a drugstore option that appeals to so many people, is so accessible. I am curious. The last lip product I am curious about, I've heard no one talk about, and it is the NARS Air Matte Ultra Lip Tint. I don't think this is available yet. And I know it's part of their like Air Matte line, and I know NARS has an Air Matte liquid lipstick, but these are definitely a little bit more sheer and probably lighter in texture. You can really tell by the photography and the images in this campaign that they're definitely inspired by like K-Beauty and J-Beauty lip tints. The way they're photographed, that really like blurred, diffused lip line, that soft matte diffused look. But it is a look that I love, so automatically it triggers my curiosity. But I do have a lot of similar products like this in my collection. I have lip tints from Amuse, those are my K-Beauty ones. And then I've got a couple of Western ones. So I have Half Magic Beauty, they're like mouth cloud. These are also this like soft matte whipped texture, as well as the M Cosmetics soft spoken lip products. And they came out in about 6 shades as well. So they all have this really soft, diffused, velvety sort of look on the lips. So that's a swatch of one of the shades. That is the shade Manifest. I will say one of the risks of this kind of formula is that they are silicone heavy. That's how you get that powdery, cloud-like look on the lips. And if it's not formulated well, they can clump up in the lip lines or start to sort of roll around the edges of your mouth. Of course, it's NARS, so I have no doubt that it's beautifully formulated. Just want to say that as a word of warning with this kind of formula. The last item I'm curious to try is actually a skincare item, and it's the Fenty Skin Melt Off Jelly Oil Makeup Melting Cleanser. So the component of this is really interesting. It seems like a regular bottle, but then you pump the top and the product dispenses through the bottom of, you'll see, I'll include pictures of it. I can't describe it. I am also curious about the jelly texture. It turns into an oil. Seems like it will emulsify, and this is supposed to be your first cleanser. I think what attracts me to this product is definitely the texture and the component itself. It just seems like a fun, interactive way to use like a jelly cleanser. And I also feel like there aren't enough oil cleansers or balm cleansers in tubes where you don't have to use a pump. You can just like squeeze it out. It's just so much easier. It's less messy. It's just such an easier experience, and it's less messy, I find, than a pump generally. But I have a lot of products that I need to work through, and I definitely don't need another first cleanse. Currently, I'm using the Then I Met You cleansing balm, and I'm also using the Peach and Lily ginger melt oil cleanser. It's the one that comes in a pump. They're both so good, but I do have to say the Peach and Lily oil cleanser is so cushiony. It's so rich, and it's not like an oil that like dribbles down really quickly. It has a nice body to it, and it just takes everything off. Doesn't leave my skin with a film or anything weird. It's a really, really good one. So I'll link everything below, as well as everything I talked about. That's everything from me today. I would love to know if there's anything that's piquing your curiosity, but maybe you're not quite ready to pick up yet, or you're going to shop your stash. Let me know what is catching your attention. This was a fun one. I think we did some like fun little trend casting. I'm definitely ready for spring and summer, and I'm ready for punchier colors and pastels and just happier makeup, if you can't tell. So if you're into that, definitely follow along, see what I'm bringing into my collection, what I'm using. I would love for you to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.